Welcome to Dead Headspace, part of Silver Shamrock's Horrorcast, a podcast network that includes Killing Time with Silver Shamrock and Unburying the Dead. We re-exhume classic horror paperbacks for the new generation. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined always by my co-host, Brendan LaFaro. Say hi, Brendan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we're talking with the author of the Nocturnal series, Villimey Mist. Say hi, Villimey.
Hi.
I had a nice, sing-songy, say hi, Villimey.
Hi.
But she didn't match her for energy, so point goes to her.
Say hi, Villimey.
Hi.
Oh, damn it.
How many times do I have to say that?
I don't know. I'm done. Sorry. So let's just dive right into it. What got you into horror?
I think I have to give that to my older brother because he is a massive horror fan, and he's 6 years older than me, and at that time he was supposed to be babysitting me. He would usually just be sitting on the couch with his friends watching horror movies, and he kind of wasn't the best babysitter in the world. Or should I say maybe he was the best babysitter in the world, because, he wouldn't really punish me for, sneaking out of my room and watch the horror movies, like behind the sofa.
That's great. Was there one movie that really stuck out for you?
Yeah. That movie kind of scarred me for life. I remember, like I said, he was babysitting me. I was supposed to be in bed, but he and his friends had been talking about this movie called Aliens, the entire day, and they were really hyping themselves up. And of course, I got hyped up as well because I was like, "Ooh, aliens! What's that?" And as usual, I snuck behind the sofa, heard this really weird sounds coming from the TV. And as soon as my head pops out from the sofa, I get the scene with the chest burster.
Oh no! Oh, Alien, the first one.
No, the second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a scene in the second movie where they find all the colony people, and they find one woman who's still alive, and she's like, "Help me!" And I'm like, "Oh no, someone help her!" And then that chest scene. Yeah.
Was it all American horror that you guys watch, or was there anything from your side of the world that you guys watched that you really enjoyed?
It was more American horror.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just thinking about we had Henrik Nelson on. He does this amazing sculptures of monsters from.
Oh yeah. I'm following him on Twitter.
Okay, yeah. So he's closer to. I'm gonna mix it up. It's not. It's Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mix up Switzerland and Sweden. They're not even close to each other, but
no.
That's just my dumb American brain.
I was gonna say, you are a product of the American education system.
Yeah, I mean, you proud of me, Mom? So he would say the same thing, only he's a little bit older than us. And he was talking about how he would watch American horror movies, but back then it was kind of what do you say? It's kind of it's hard to come by. It's not the theater version. So you guys got to see, because I think we're all of the same age. You got to see a good version of everything, right?
Yeah, I did.
That's great. You know what? Alien 4 Resurrection was the one that really fucked with me. I mean, it did when I was a little kid, but when I was a little bit older, I saw Resurrection with my older cousins, and I kept hiding behind them. They're like, "You're scared." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And then I hid behind them. But that one scene where the alien gets sucked out through a tiny hole, piece by piece.
Oh yeah. That was a nasty scene.
I couldn't eat meat after that for a while.
It's so funny because I love those films. I love the alien films. They're my favorite horror films. But even today, I have to psych myself up to watch it. It's just okay, it's the middle of the day, the sun is shining, I should be safe, right? And then I start the movie and I immediately start sweating. I'm like, nope, today's not a good day. Nope, we're good.
Brandon, why don't you take over, bud?
So, you pop out from behind the couch, alien pops out of the chest. What what's your reaction? Are you like entranced, or do you run away screaming?
I was like petrified. Like I wasn't tranced. There's like I just because this is a scene I've never seen before, and like this is like this thing was just moving like out of the chest, and I was like, what's happening? I remember I asked my brother like, what movie is this? And my brother's like, oh no, you're not supposed to see that. But then he's just, being the lazy babysitter that he is, that he was like, just go back to bed, go back to bed. And I'm like, how can I go back to bed after this? I have so many questions.
So you had to start it over at the beginning, and then eventually go back to the first movie, kind of wade through all that mythos and answer all those questions.
Yep. I still can't, I can watch Alien for a little bit more, a little longer than Aliens, but at the same time, I always keep worrying about Jonesy. Because I'm a cat person. I've been raised with cats since I was born, I think. I mean, I have two cats at home even now. And just the thought, like, why did you bring a fucking cat to space?
That's a good question.
And just why? I mean, I know he's your companion, but I would leave my cats.
So I think it's so interesting that, little Villimey has the same reaction as older Villimey. So I'm wondering, as a writer, when you set out to create your own stories, is that what you wanted to inspire in people that read them?
Yeah, I wanted to be shocked. And I wanted to be like, oh, I did not see that coming, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I just, I think, the brutality of that chestburster scene in Aliens might have, just seeped right into me. And I always look for this kind of brutality whenever I'm writing.
Well, I mean, we'll get into the Nocturnal series further, but I'll tell you straight out that there was a moment late in book 1 that you pulled that off with me in spades. I did not see that coming. And maybe I should have, but I didn't. It's brutal, and oh shit, she went there. So hey, if that's what you're going for, you're pulling it off.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, book 1 is so far, in my opinion, the most brutal of the 3. To take away how the second and third are pretty violent at times, but the first one is just like, oh my god, it's like a good comparison for me is House of a Thousand Corpses would be book 1.
Oh,
because
nice.
that one's the most like gruesome and grotesque, and then the second one's like, all right, this is pretty fucked up still, but it's like a softer version, but still fucked up. Brandon, why don't you take us away with Nocturnal series?
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about vampires. You talked a little bit about your early experience with Aliens. Tell us what made you say, I want to write vampire fiction, because that's a big chunk of what you write.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I grew up reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like, I had different kinds of editions that my brother actually owned. So, I used to steal from him, of course, because my mom didn't think that horror was good for girls. And I'm like, I have 2 brothers. What do you mean? And even my dad, he was like, I mean, she loves cars and everything, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had like the regular, like not like the first edition, but the paperback version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and then my brother also owned like the illustrated version, which was actually pretty cool. And I was just really fascinated how this kind of old but still young-looking vampire just could create so much dread and just so much horror all around him without people at all knowing what the hell was going on. And I just really, really love that idea that, there is a being just walking among us normal humans, and you don't know whether he's, just a normal guy or he's just a vicious beast who can just rip your throat out. And I just really, as I grew up, I always kept looking for, these kind of stories like this, anything that had to do with vampires, I just immediately grabbed. And I remember when I was in college, I saw the book Twilight. And I had no idea what that book was about. I just like looked at the cover, like the blurb, and I'm like, vampires, all right, great. And I bought the copy, and I didn't even read the book because it was during finals, and my friends and I decided to, just to blow off some steam after studying for finals. We decided to go to the movies, and Twilight was showing. And we had no idea again what the movie was about, except that it had vampires, and I'm like, vampires, good shit. You can't miss it. And then we went to see it, and the entire cinema was filled with 15-year-olds shrieking and gasping, and just not the kind of theater I was actually hoping for. And when I saw that scene when he was like glittering in the fucking day, I just lost it. I'm like, I almost stood up and I was ready to walk out. My friend like, no, this is hilarious. We need to sit this through and just laugh. And I think we were the only 4 people in the entire hall, just laughing the entire time. And it was so fun. It was even more funny because there were so many of those 15-year-olds who just had to reach behind look over their shoulders and give us nasty looks. It's like, how dare you? How dare you? And I'm like, how dare you? How dare me? How dare the fucking person who ruined vampires for people?
Safe to say Stephanie Meyer probably won't ever listen to this, so. But
Yeah.
it would be funny to see your vampires versus hers in a book, so.
Oh,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Yeah, not even just the vampires. My songs, they would just kick her ass. So basically, I had just noticed that, the myth, or how people perceive vampires had just really just fallen into the paranormal romance category. It just had to be this romanticized thing, and I just remember, since childhood, I'm like, no, yeah, I can understand the charm. They're supposed to be charming because that's how they lure you into, eating you. And how are you not fucking scared about that? And so I decided, like, okay, fuck it. I need my own vampires. I need to make them scary as shit. And if there's no one else here to write about it, I'll just write it.
That's great.
So yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt, Brennan.
Oh, okay. So I guess the next thing I want to know is what made you decide that it's going to be set in Anchorage?
Well, I've covered this before, but you guys need to have it as well and on your podcast. But a lot of people have asked me like why I didn't set it in Iceland. I actually wrote an article about it, and Horror DNA, they published it, like the 5 reasons or the 4 reasons that I didn't set the Nocturnal series in Iceland, because I am Icelandic. Was because I live on an island. It's in the middle of the fucking north. And about 350,000 people live here, and we basically all know each other. There's always going to be that element, like if you see that one person like walking down the street and your spouse or maybe your sibling be like, oh yeah, this is my best friend's uncle, niece, blah blah blah, and you're like, oh yeah, I think I remember her from that time. Yeah. So having vampires prancing around in Iceland would not be well received because, they would know.
Yeah.
And, if a person got missing, we would know. Especially if someone was killed. We would know. There was a horrible murder here in Iceland a couple of years ago of an Icelandic girl. And she went missing first, and then we got suspicions she might have been murdered. And, just the whole country just got together and decided to search for her. And she was found within, I think, a week or 2 weeks. And we also found the guy who killed her. So that having that, behind my head and trying to write the Nocturnal series, I'm like, no, this will be a witch hunt in the most extreme thing. And I don't want my vampires to die yet.
I don't think it would be really a series either.
No, exactly. And also, like, the country is small. Like, this island is small. You can go around the country. If you go what we call the ring road, it's like this, just all around the country. And you can go around in maybe 3 to 4 days. So it's not a long journey, and despite we have amazing landscapes and everything,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
we
Look at
wouldn't.
pictures.
Yeah, we wouldn't really, I wouldn't get the theme or the atmosphere that I would want in the series. So I decided to look up some places in the US that, would be similar. And Alaska has the same geographical climate. It also has like similar landscapes, and the clock is similar here. So they have the same kind of when there's like a summer here in Iceland, that we have like a longer summer day, so which we call the midnight sun. Like the sun is up until midnight or way into the night. It's similar in Anchorage. So these were elements that I was familiar with, so I could use it to write the first book at least.
That's a great answer, and I almost feel silly for asking it, because like now that you've laid out, I'm like, wow, you're right. It's not conducive to like a smallish island setting. It's a sprawling series. There's a lot of traveling. Even just in book one, they make their way almost to like Southern Oregon, Northern California. But that's really neat that you kind of took what obviously they always say write what you know, and you said, okay, well, I can't set it here, but I can find somewhere like here that will allow me to kind of expand in the way I need to. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I really just wanted to be like a road trip kind of thing. And you can do a road trip in Iceland, but it wouldn't be as exciting as it would happen in your Anchorage,
Yep.
So, real quick before we dive into the story, we were talking about this before we started recording. You talk about Counter-Strike in, I think, only 2 of the books, but you still mention them, and I don't really hear anyone talk about that game these days. I was obsessed with that game. Started playing in 2001, when like a year or two after it came out, and that was fun as hell. That was my first experience jumping in random servers, playing with different countries. And there was one point when I was a little bit older. I don't think of drinking age, but close, where I was just drunk off my ass playing with some Middle Eastern country, and we couldn't understand each other, but they were laughing at the stupid shit I was saying. So I think that there's a universal understanding that this dumbass is drunk. But my whole point of bringing that up is I love that game. You mentioned it a few times where you're in the book, Leia's brother's playing it, and I have a feeling your brother probably played it too. So
Yep. My brother played it. My little brother played it. My husband still plays it.
oh, nice.
So yeah, I just had to bring that element in there. I'm like, people probably don't know what Counter Strike is, but the more you know, the more you learn.
It was just it was one of those games for anyone that doesn't know. When I was I think 12, 13, I wanted to be one of those players that I never got half as good as I wanted to be, but there were tournaments. You had to be 18 or older, and I had like 5 years to go. So there was this big tournament in Texas. There was these big tournaments in Europe. There were other places throughout the world. You could make fucking bank. If your team won, you wouldn't be set for life. You'd be, especially as an 18-year-old, you're looking at a pretty, you don't need a job for a little while. And the arenas were packed. Like, there's e-gaming. I think it's fair to say, I'm going on a tangent, but I think it's fair to say that e-gaming, if it isn't right now, there's a good chance that it could be a threat to actual physical sports due to the fanfare. I mean, I've looked at the numbers. The audiences, some of them are bigger than some sports. I don't know about football or soccer, but they're pretty damn big. So, did you ever play Counter Strike yourself?
I have no hand-to-eye coordination when it comes to when it comes to shooter games. I'm just so bad at it. I remember when my husband and I started dating a little bit. He had this kind of LAN party.
Mm.
And he invited a couple of friends over, and they would play together in his garage or his parents' garage. And he invited me to play as well. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Kind of feel like, hey, I'm part of the guys, yay. And I sat down, and we started to play, I think it was Doom. I think he played Doom.
Oh, nice.
And but before we started, he was just like, stood up and told the guys like, hey, this is her first time, and just go easy on her. She's just working out the kinks and everything. And guys were like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So I start, and he shoots me dead in the first minute.
Your husband?
Yeah.
Oh, that bastard.
So I was like, yep, I'm done.
Now, I didn't understand what that term was for a while, but just in, if someone's not a gamer or whatever, LAN is just like a local area network. But in this case, it means just a bunch of local people in one area playing, not connected online. There was a LAN center I grew up in a town called Bridgewater, just like super suburbia in Massachusetts. Like, there's actually, I don't know if it's all suburbia. There's some rural farmland there too, but anyways, there was a LAN center, and we played Counter-Strike a lot. It's not there anymore. I don't know what happened, but before we were recording, also for anyone that also played and drank balls, it was this, and you can still find it on Google. It's BAWLZ. It's a blue bottle, has bumps on it. They knew what they were doing. I'm just throwing it out there because it's funny as hell. It was good. I don't know if they changed it up, but it used to be pretty good. So, Brendan, how about you take us away before I just go off the rails completely?
No, I want to ask you a question because, Villimey, feel free to jump in if you have any insight into this, but I never understood why, I used to see things at like the supermarket, like Mountain Dew Game Fuel. It's like you're sitting on a couch pressing buttons. What the hell do you need fuel for?
I think it probably just meant, we want you to stay up the entire fucking night, so here's your fucking fuel.
That's the new slogan. Mountain Dew, take notice.
I'm gonna be really disappointed if I don't. I'm gonna be really disappointed if I don't see that in a bottle at some point.
Yeah, Brennan's like, why don't a bunch of nerds need fuel?
I don't know. It's like it just seems like it's trying to like rival like a Gatorade. Like, hey, refuel yourself because you just ran around for an hour and a half. It's like, hey, refuel yourself because you fucking ate a lot of Cheetos, I guess.
He's upsetting a lot of listeners, I'm sure.
It's true. I'm eventually going to have to learn my way around video games if I'm going to keep doing this show. We talk about them entirely too much for me to know nothing about them.
We had Mark Laidlaw, the dude that is, if you're going to say this one person made Half-Life what it is,
yeah.
It's Mark, and I mean, he was grateful. We were grateful enough to get him to talk a little bit about Half-Life, but he's going on like 30 plus years of talking about that game. Kind of want to bring it back to the Nocturnal series.
That's fair.
How's the reception been on book 1 and now all the way up to book 3?
I think it has been good. I mean, people really enjoy the first book, which was, I try not to have like huge expectations because imposter syndrome and being a writer, you're like, my stuff is never good enough. You kind of have that kind of mindset on you, and I'm just trying not to be to have a huge head because they could always bring you down. So I'm realistic about if people don't like my stuff, I just I respect them for it. I'm like, thank you still for reading it, and that's good. But yeah, people have really, really loved book 1, which is great. And as I mentioned, like in my acknowledgements, it was supposed to be just a standalone story. And thankfully, my editor, Serena Langer, she just kind of almost reached through the computer screen and like, no, this has potential. You just need to look for it. I know you can do it. Leia has more stuff to do. And I just, I didn't really believe it at the time. But then when you're doing these kind of mundane things like mopping the floor or just doing the dishes, you could just have these kind of revelations. And that just happened to me one summer. I was just doing the dishes at one of my part-time jobs. And I just had this moment like, hey, actually, wait, what if this happens to her brother now? I mean, I gotta fuck up her family entirely. So why the fuck not her brother? And then that's how book 2 came alive. And then, when I was writing book 2, I imagined like, hey, I think I have stuff for book 3 as well. And yeah, people have got like mixed reviews regarding book 2, which is, I mean, understandable. It's always happens when it comes to sequels, and I was really worried about that, but they've still enjoyed it at the same time, and it hasn't gotten like the most ravest reviews like book 1 has. But it doesn't really bother me that much because as I was saying, sequels, it's really hard to do a good sequel.
Yeah.
And book 3 so far, I think, because I tried to amp up the action a little bit in book 3, I think people have gotten like, hey, look at that, she's gotten back to the action, which is what she's good at. I'm like, I mean, that's good.
Why don't you tell us in your own words what the first book's about, or the series?
So the Nocturnal series is this journey for an anxious girl. Her name is Leia Walker. She's named after, of course, the Star Wars princess, because her father is a huge Star Wars fan. And she just is going through this entire world, just trying both to get a grip of what this world is about, especially just her, regular world, which involves, her dealing with anxiety and OCD. And then this new world that she's kind of thrust into by her best friend Sophie Gardner, which is the world of vampires. And she's just, trying to go through the motions, which is, not really something you can do when, vampires and ghouls and vampire hunters and songs are kind of just trying to kill you. And she's just, trying to survive and just trying to find herself in that world, whether she belongs or not.
I love that ghoul scene. That was so fucked up. It was so cool. Like the way you describe how also like a ghoul is dying. You really honed in on it's like you have a microscope and you're like, here's the most brutal part and here's some sensory details to make you just have your nerves jitter. He did a great job with that. Brendan, what was your take on the ghoul scene?
I loved the ghouls. That excuse me. I hit that part and I just kind of had this realization, I guess might be the closest word, that the way you were expanding the mythos in such a nice organic manner. Can't talk this morning, too early. Like that's when it hit me, how much I enjoyed it. And you've described this as a YA book, and I want to talk more about that, but I feel like I compared it to the Percy Jackson books, and I apologize if you don't take that well, but I love those books.
No, I mean, there's a reason why they're so well received, so I take that as a huge compliment. I mean, Ross Jeffrey, he compared it to the Hunger Games books, and those are one of my favorite books, so I was like, oh my, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ross Jeffrey.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of the way that, the characters kind of come first, and the way that in that case, the Greek mythology is kind of laid out so it's not just dropped in your lap as a big exposition dump, but it's done very naturally throughout the story, where we get to that point with the ghouls and it's, oh God, what now? We get to that part where they're staying at the kind of motel. And we learn a little bit. The world unfolds a little bit bigger. I love the way that was handled, and of course, back to what Patrick was saying about unfolding the brutality. Yeah, you don't let us look away very often, and I appreciate that.
I think I had to just really put myself in like this kind of situation because I'm the story is written like in first person present tense, and you're going through all of this as Leia, so she has to feel and sense all of it. So I try to put like all of the senses in there, and I have like this huge thing with when it comes to smell. If there's something that's really off-putting, that it kind of triggers my anxiety, and I put that as well into to Leia, especially when it came to smell, and just, riding that ghoul seemed just, it was super fun, but at the same time it churned my stomach.
Yeah. I had
Oh,
something.
you're not jumping in? Okay.
No, I had something, but my brain just went blank because I heard a cat and
Oh yeah, that's one of my cats. Like I said, they really need sometimes attention. I'm like, why do you need it now? You're sleeping.
it threw me off. Sorry, pea brain. I can't remember what I was gonna ask.
That's my cat, RoboCop.
Is that really your cat's name?
I forgot you had a cat named RoboCop.
Yep. Yeah.
That's amazing.
When we and my husband and I decided to get cats, I was adamant that I would get to choose them because they had to be brothers, from the same litter.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, okay, as long as I get to name one of the cats. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And we found one who is completely black. That was one of the conditions for me as well. I had to have a black cat because I love black cats. And the other one was completely gray. And he just took at him and he's just, yeah, his name is RoboCop. Because RoboCop is his favorite film.
That's a good film.
I know.
You know what, though? We had the same thing happen in my house. I didn't want another cat, so obviously we got another cat, but I got to name it. That's how we ended up with Sergeant Pepper's.
See?
Now, I was going to talk about book one, and I am having a difficult time remembering which thing I want to hone in on. Brendan, you got anything else on book one? Trigger my memory?
I don't know if it's book one specific, but I was curious, when you were designing Leia as a character, how much of yourself did you put into her?
Like, maybe 70% of me. I mean, she is basically my insecure self. She's like this socially awkward person. Like I can exude like this extrovertedness, but at the same time I'm cringing so much on the inside. I'm like, nope, this can't be good. I just want to be home where people can't see me and I can just, be awkward by myself. And especially in regards to her anxiety, all of her experiences that I put in the book, they're personally like what happens to me. So I managed to put that in.
That is something I wanted to cover. You talk a whole lot about anxiety throughout the series. I imagine it's going to stay that way. I like that because I'm seeing more and more discussion about things that I'm sure when we were all growing up was considered like taboo.
Yeah.
Such as your mental health, which I don't get why you wouldn't talk about that in the first place. But you talk about it a lot, and I think that's one thing that separates this story, never mind that it's specifically a vampire story, from stories of the same nature.
Yeah.
It's one thing, like, first off, you're Icelandic, and I don't know, honestly, up front, I don't know any other Icelandic authors, so that's one thing I was like, I should check this out. She's probably got, have her own culture and stuff that I'm not aware of. I want to read that. But then I started reading it and I'm like, holy shit. That's why I got through them pretty quick. I do text to speech, and like I know everyone's not programmed that way where they can digest the stories, but I found out that's the way I can. And I was listening. I had a 6-hour car drive this past week, or maybe 2 weekends ago, and my wife's cool with me like playing my books on the car ride, and she's getting like a little agitated with Leia. She's like, "No, don't do that. Why are you trusting that person? That other person already fucked you." I was like, oh, she's not into horror, but Tara's getting into this. I like this, and I ended up listening to the rest of book one on my own. I literally had one earbud in my ear, with the exception of dinner and a barbecue with my immediate family. I had one earbud in my ear pretty much the whole weekend, and I just like blasted through book 2 and 3, and there's a reason for that. It's just so fucking good. Like, me and Brendan both talked. We both love the series and can't wait for the next to come out. I don't really know if there's a question in how to end this, so it's just my way of kind of saying like, hey, listeners, you should check this out. It's very different from other vampire novels. Brennan, I don't know how to end this, so why don't you just like say anything?
I'll just pretend I'm you and continue talking. So,
Thank
you
you.
know, you
You're
mentioned
handsome, Patrick.
do you, I don't know where to go with that.
I don't hear
But
that, so I just want to say to you.
well, there goes my train of thought. So, you mentioned earlier that, the response to the second book wasn't quite as powerful as book one. And, my interpretation of that is because book two and three have an arc that kind of spans the two books. So you don't get everything quite as wrapped up at the end of two as you would at one and three. Now, going forward, you're planning to write 6 books in the series.
Yeah.
How much of that are you going to do again where you have arcs that span multiple books?
I mean, like apart from like after I finish the Nocturnal series, or
Oh no, I mean in going forward, are we going to have more self-contained stories, or are they going to be like, let's say we get to the end of book 4
mm.
and we get a mini wrap up, but there's still, something big to deal with.
Oh yeah. Well, book 4 is, I think, gonna be more of like a self-sustained story. But like I said, like you mentioned, there might be like a little bit that will lead people on to the book 5, and then book 5 and 6. Well, book 5, it's gonna be like book 2 and book 3. So it's gonna be connected. So as because it has to wrap up in book 6. What's gonna happen?
Who's your favorite character, Brennan?
My favorite character.
Oh yeah,
I
I should have asked you first. Sorry, who's your favorite character?
He was asking me, which makes no sense because I'm not here to be interviewed right now.
No, that's true. Well, I want to get an overall thing. I know I asked Brennan first. I'm sorry, that's stupid. Well, who's your favorite character, Villimey?
My favorite is Sophie,
Why?
because she is the other part of me, the one that is, unabashed, is gets angry quickly, and rightfully so. And who it has this kind of confidence that she just doesn't give a fuck anymore, and she's just all about self-preservation. And that's what I really really love about her. She's the kind of badass character that I want to see more in other horror, like in horror films or in like horror novels. We know she's like a badass, but at the same time we know that she's also dealing with a lot of stuff herself, and she's trying to bottling all in herself, not trying to ask for help, because that's how society has basically put us through. But in the end she decides to go and seek help through Leia, which is kind of her anchor.
That's great. Yeah, like she's like Princess Leia, except she swears and does lots of bad things, which kicks
Oh
ass.
yeah, I mean, yeah, she's not a good person for sure. I mean, there were people that wrote in some of the reviews like they didn't like how she was treating Leia, putting her. It was kind of like an abusive relationship, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I wanted it. I mean, she's gone through a lot, and she's still processing it, and she doesn't know what to do with it. So, and she has only one friend, so it just all barrels down on Leia, unfortunately.
Oh, poor girl. Brennan, I am curious who your favorite character is.
I love Sophie. I'm really tempted to go with Leia, but I think I'm going to go with Kenji.
Oh,
I
you
love
son
Kenji.
of a bitch! You took my.
Yeah. He
um,
he he just has this quiet calm about him, and what really I think makes him stick out is that, granted he has not been a vampire quite as long as, some of the other characters mentioned in the book, but he kind of keeps this humble attitude of like self-control, and you just assume that if he makes it to that, like, 800 1000 years old, that he's going to be the same person. He's a delight to read.
he's a samurai.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
and
that's
that.
ex- that's exactly how I pictured him when he popped into my head.
So I wasn't really looking at the actual Kindle at my screen most of the time, but I remember the first illustration I saw was of Kenji, and like he would scare the shit out of me. But I would hope to be in Leia's position where he's like, You're one of us. It's fine, buddy. But don't fuck with
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, I think that's why I liked writing that scene in book two when he had to, um, bite Leia,
Mm.
and you could kind of see like, no, he's this gentle giant. How can he do that? And then you can definitely see that, even though he is this, great calm person who kind of sees, he's like the voice of reason within the book, in the books. But you can also just, see that there are things that can throw him off, and you don't want to be there when it happens.
No, no, absolutely not. I love the phase of a vampire that you have created. It's obviously, it's not new, but nothing's really new. It's what you do with as a writer, how you spin it that is different, and the way you spin it is great. Just to for potential readers, it's your vampire. You got to eat blood. If you don't eat blood, you become feral. But it's how you play. It's how you write about those, and it's like the descriptors of like what happens to you if you don't. And you really just go back to Bram Stoker of the charm for luring a victim, and it's really just they're not good creatures. They aren't. They suck us dry, and if they don't, they become even scarier.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything about book two that you want to tell us? Maybe a synopsis because we haven't covered that, and same for book three.
Yeah, sure. In book two, Leia is kind of dealing with the aftermath of what happened in book one. Not gonna do any spoilers here. I've been so guilty of that when it comes to films, and I'm doing a good job at containing myself, even though I want to tell you everything. But yeah, she's dealing with what happened in book one, and it was a traumatic event. I mean, if you survive, this kind of vampire like siege, I mean, you don't really come unscathed from it. That's kind of how I wanted to to tell in book two that she's suffering from PTSD because of it, and she's getting treatment. But then she kind of notices that there's something going on in the world, like people are going missing, especially in Europe. But she kind of feels like, as would happen, like when there are kind of these kind of disasters, because it's so far away from you, you feel detached, and it doesn't really concern you. But then the ball drops when it actually does concern Leia, because her little brother, who's Nathan, he goes on a class trip to Amsterdam, and he goes missing. And she immediately jumps to the conclusion that it might have to do with vampires, because she is the only one, kind of like might have been the only human in the world that knows about the existence of vampires. So she kind of feels that it's up to her to go and find him before the vampires do. And she seeks the assistance of Kenji, a Japanese vampire, and Grigori, an Italian vampire elder, to help her find her little brother. And so they travel to Amsterdam, and that's where she kind of is hitting this she's kind of in between a rock and a hard place, because she has this kind of disadvantage of only going to look for him during night, because the vampires can only roam around at night. But she doesn't feels like time is ticking, and she has to use every single time to find him. So she enlists the help of two vampire hunters as well. So she's kind of like doing this kind of like a double agent kind of thing, and she has to juggle that at the same time while trying to going deeper into the vampire underground world of Amsterdam.
Did it take a lot of? Have you been there before, or was it all research?
It was all research. I've never been there.
I mean, I personally want to know. That's really cool. That's one of the questions I had in my head when I was reading the second one. Was like, whoa, there's a lot of details, but I mean, I can follow along pretty damn well. Brennan, what were your thoughts on the international aspect of it? We're actually traveling outside of America.
I loved it, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The first one had this kind of sprawling road trip mentality to it, and it almost just makes a certain type of sense to be like, okay, let's go bigger, let's do more. If we're retreading that kind of trip down West Coast North America, then we're not adding enough to, debatably. I mean, we're just retreading the same ground, quite literally. So to kind of send it over to Europe almost seems like the next natural progression in a series. I thought it was fantastic. And I I'm not going to ask you to give us a synopsis of book 3 because I don't think that's fair to put on you.
Oh, definitely not.
For people who have not read, anything in the series yet and who are looking to it, I don't even know what you could tell us about it without giving things away.
I know. It just, putting it, like, when I was promoting it on Twitter, I just like, how the fuck can I do this without spoiling everything?
Yeah.
And I managed to do a little snippet, so I can just, if you are interested in knowing what happens in book 3, I can just kind of give you the locations. So it will, Leia will be traveling even further, and she'll also be going back home, but not to Anchorage. She'll actually end up going to Atlanta in Georgia. So it starts in Amsterdam. She then travels all the way to London, where I can definitely say that you're gonna find this kind of interesting pub brawl there. And then they are on a plane to Atlanta in Georgia, and you also kind of get more insight into the world of the songs, which I also wanted to expand. The songs in my vampire world are these kind of vampire familiars, like human companions. Kind of think Renfield from Bram Stoker's Dracula, but they're more like the guy. Damn, I can't remember what was his character's name in Blade 2. The one that Norman Reedus played.
Oh, I forget what his name was.
Yeah, it was
Norman Reedus. I forgot
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a mixture between Renfield and that character in Blade 2, in which they are kind of serving as the vampires' eyes and ears during the day. So because they are vulnerable during the day, but at least they have they enlisted the help. I just want to do that in quotation marks because it's not really help; it's more like servitude. Of these kind of human familiars. So in book 3, you get a little bit of snippet of how that world is.
That was a marvelous tightrope walk you just did there.
Thank you.
So what I do want to ask you about is, I got the sense that these were painstakingly planned out. So when you go to develop a novel or even the overarching series, what's your process like? Is there a lot of outlining before you actually sit down to write?
Yeah. That's I would definitely maybe just call myself a plantser. I do I'm a mixture between a pantser and a planner, and I always outline my stories before I jump into it. But at the same time, it's just for me, it's really nice to have this kind of ideas put out in each chapter, what's going to happen. So I just know I'm not going to be derailed, but there's always this kind of interesting thing that will pop up as I'm writing it. Like it will maybe go into complete different direction, but at the same time, I still have this kind of skeleton to go look at as I write. So, and for those of you who don't know, I'm this kind of crazy person who outlines and writes everything by hand. So I have with Nocturnal Blood, the first book, I have 3 notebooks, written page to page.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I think Nocturnal Farm, the second book, also has 3 notebooks, and Nocturnal Salvation, the third book, also has 3 notebooks. So I filled in 9 notebooks so far.
That's
killer right hand, man.
I don't know what to say because I get all sore and whatnot when I'm writing longhand. I do like writing longhand, but yeah,
I just grew up with it. For me, a lot of people ask me why I do this and why I'm this crazy. It's just, when I'm staring at a screen, like a computer screen, nothing comes forth. Just the juices, they don't flow. But as soon as I like have my pen and my notebook is just there, it's almost like it has like a demon has possessed my hand and it's just writing for me. Clever shout out to Idle Hands.
Do you okay? So I don't think we're gonna really talk anymore about Nocturnal. It seems like we're gonna be stepping on some spoiler territory. Do you
Yeah.
guys wanna jump to something else?
Yeah.
All right. So how about your recent release, The Banquet? What can you tell
Ah.
us about that?
Basically, I wrote it really angry. Well, how it kind of came into light was it happened during um, International Women's Week. So everyone was basically started off, congratulating women and on all successes and what kind of we can achieve and everything like that. But then I suddenly started seeing like a lot of these assholes just jumping up and in and just butting in and saying, "Hey, what about International Men's Day? Why don't we have anything like that?" Which is actually kind of funny because they actually do. So I'm like, shut the fuck up. You already have it. So just let us have this. God damn it. And then there also came this outrage regarding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, that infamous interview with Oprah, and just how people were bashing Meghan about her mental health and everything. And I'm a huge advocate for her mental health, so this also pissed me off. Like, she couldn't get any real help. Like, why are you screaming at her for not getting real help? She couldn't.
Mm.
And just to top it all off, then came the murder of Sarah Everard. And she was a British woman who was just, she was normal. She did all the normal things that a woman is expected to do when she's going home alone. But she was still kidnapped, raped, and killed by a policeman, no less. And just going through, especially on Instagram and on Twitter, just seeing all these experiences that women have been telling, just all the things that we're supposed to do but isn't enough, and then we're all scolded for it and judged by it. And it just really, really, really made me angry and just frustrated, was that this is kind of this, it's 2021 and this is still the society that we live in. So I decided, like, I needed an outlet, and writing is my outlet, and I just wanted to write something about it, and I just wanted to kind of like give something back to these women, even though it might not be their cup of tea, which is of course completely understandable. But this was kind of how I would deal with it. I'm kind of like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth kind of girl, but like I said, this is probably Sophie in me talking, but Leia in me would also just say, no, but I also believe in second chances. But we'll probably get to that in someday. So I decided to write The Banquet, which was inspired by Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, because that short story is one of my favorite short stories in the world. It's just so good. And it also had this kind of elements of the Hostel by Eli Roth.
Yeah. That was the first one was so pretty good.
Yeah. And I just I have never written anything about like torture devices, even though it's one of the things that I love to research. They're just so nasty, and just how far people would go for this it boggles the mind. And so I came up with a story about like a secret annual event regarding women who are invited to this event, and they are given the opportunity to exact vengeance on the men who sexually assaulted them.
Mm.
So it's a short story, but it was a lot of fun, and I just giving these women, especially in the story, this opportunity to do all kinds of nasty things to those men was just, in a way, a little bit of cathartic for me.
Brandon, I got thoughts, but let's hear yours.
Well, first of all, the at least a portion of the proceeds are going to. I'm going to ask you to say the charity's name. I see 2 accents on there, which means I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah. Well, actually, not portion. All of the proceeds
All
will
of
go.
them, okay.
Yeah, all of the
All
proceeds.
portion.
Yeah, I guess. All of the proceeds will go to Stígamót, which is an Icelandic charity that offers counsel to victims of abuse.
That's awesome. Now, just so people know, we're gonna have the link to download this. It's $3 American for the short story. Well worth it. But I couldn't find. I looked on Amazon first, and I found it on Smashwords. So why don't you tell us, if you don't mind, why Smashwords? Why is that? That's the only place I could really seem to find it on.
Yeah. I kind of wanted it to be like available as an ebook for old people, and there have also been issues with Amazon at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and people are trying to boycott Amazon. So I just wanted to give them opportunity that Smashwords is a place where people can buy ebooks as well, and they offer it in all the formats. So that was one of the reasons I decided, like, yeah, Smashwords is good, I'll just do that. And they also distribute it to other places as well, not just Amazon.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Hostel, because that's what Banquet reminded me of at times. Except it was specifically directed not at tourists, foreigners, but at shitty guys. And it's always weird for me, and I'm gonna speak for Brandon and guys like us, where some other guy would be like, "Hey, I'm not okay with this," and you're like, "What? Some rapists getting what they deserve?" It's so weird.
I know. It was so funny when I aired this idea to Twitter, like, "Hey, what do you guys think about this kind of revenge torture story? I mean, it sounds good, right?" And everyone, generally, like most of the women that replied, they were like, "Hell yeah, give us that."
Hmm.
But then there came this one guy, elderly man, and just quote tweeted that my idea and just like, no, you shouldn't do that, there's been enough man bashing in the world. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean,
I was kind of speechless, and I'm like, I don't know
yeah.
how to react to this. And then I talked to my friend, I talked to Richard from Staring Into the Abyss, and I'm like, dude, what the hell, what is this? He just was like, oh, hang on, I got you. We will settle this.
Fair to say that probably most of the world's issues have been caused by men. It's been most are patriarchal. It goes back to thousands of years. I mean, let's say the roles are reversed. I'll get off my milk crate in a second, but let's say the roles are reversed. Seriously, think about it. Every major war, most women, at least in the States, weren't allowed to fight. They did, but they weren't known to be women. They had to do it under a guise.
Yeah.
Going back to the earliest days, I mean, ancient Rome, the Senate, it's all run by men.
Hmm.
So, I'm curious if the roles were reversed, what would happen? It might be a lot better of a place.
It is an interesting concept, and I hope someone will like tackle it like in a horror novel kind of sense.
Someone smarter than myself, I hope would tackle that because that'd be pretty cool. Um, just one more thing about the banquet. There's one scene I won't describe it, but it made certain parts of me shrink inside my tummy. I'm like, oh my god, this guy deserves it 100%. But I'm just like, oh, this hurts me.
Which ones? I went
Yeah.
I went a lot there.
Okay, fine. I'll just say it.
I can think
So,
of at least 3 parts that you might be referencing.
I'm referencing when the guy's penis is cut.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, it didn't actually come. I didn't write that part yet, but when I sent it to my friend, the one, his name is Damascus. He's the one who does the illustrations in my Nocturnal novels. And he sent me, like, he is usually my alpha reader, so I always send him my stuff to him first and ask him for his feedback. And he just came back to me like, okay, I love the story, but I know you can do so much worse with this. And I'm like, what do you mean worse? I'm like, this guy needs hell. You need to
Yeah.
give him literal hell, and you need to really embarrass him. Like, talk something about his penis or something. I mean, cut off his penis, just anything. And I'm like, huh, all right, yeah, I can do that.
That's hilarious because, and I'm not gonna, we won't talk about this because it's in submission, but that's kind of what I said to you about the short story you sent me the other day. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm like, this is good, but I've read 3 books by you and a few short stories. You're better than this.
I know. This is what happens when I'm like on deadline and I can't manage to like firmly like gestate the brutality and the nastiness that usually it lives in my head.
Mhm.
So usually I just send out this kind of first draft, and when I get feedback like this, like you can do better, then I can sit down and I'm like, oh yeah, I have some ideas.
I like how what you write and how you zoom in on certain things, like I've already said, but I feel like I can relate my style of writing to you. Like you can ask Brennan. I've written a lot with him, and he's read my stuff, and he's if it wasn't him, it was someone else that said like you can stretch this out a little bit, and that's why I'm a firm believer of beta readers. Like I love them. I know some authors don't use them, but what you got anything you want to say about beta readers? How they've helped you in whatever story?
They've helped me so much. I mean, I cannot stress enough how, having beta readers and just having, also like an alpha reader is really helpful. I mean, you always think that everything that you write is correct, or, it feels like it, like, yeah, I think it's like this. But getting this kind of feedback that, oh no, this sounds weird, this sounds awkward, maybe add a little bit of this or this, even though they're just suggestions, you can always just, take it with a grain of salt, or just, try to properly digest what they have.
Hmm.
That's what I usually do. I just, I sit down and I read the feedback, and usually I always understand the feedback, and I usually use the feedback because this is, these ideas, they are good and they help you make the story good, even look even better. So yeah, for those of you who are a little bit, hesitant about having beta readers or alpha readers, or just, or if you have critique partners, by all means, get them.
Mm.
They will help you so much. Because as I don't know who came up with the saying, but it's better to have more eyes than just two. This is than just one pair. I probably said that really, 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 really badly, but you get the point.
Brendan, what are your thoughts? I'm curious, man. What are your thoughts on beta readers?
On beta readers,
Yeah.
I would echo pretty much everything that Villimey just said. Um, I I like the idea where you kind of went on about you look at something that you've finished and you've looked over 2 or 3 times, and you know it's when you get the notes back from beta readers, you might look at a sentence that you looked at 4 or 5 times, and you're like, yeah, this is awkward. How did I get past that? How did I okay that in the first place? Or, I could expand a little bit here, or I should lose that because it's useless. It's just that, another set of eyes, somebody whose opinion you trust, and of course that's tantamount, you can't just, send it to the first person who replies on Twitter. That doesn't go well. Most of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so as long as it's somebody whose opinions or writing you trust, pointing out things to you that you're just too close to the story to pick up on, I think they're crucial.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Damascus really helped me with book three, for example. He got the first draft when I finished it, and he managed to point out a lot of things that I could both expand and also get rid of, or just add on to, and that he just really had a huge help in this.
That's great. That's great to have someone like that. In my experience, going on like 8 years now, I think, with beta readers, maybe 7, but I didn't have a go-to for the longest time because I was kind of feeling my way around, and that's probably something that would have been helpful when I was starting out. Just know that every beta reader you have, even if they're good, it doesn't mean they're a good fit for you.
Yeah,
Um, like my first go-to beta reader was a guy I refer to at times as my mentor, Mark Cassell. He's phenomenal writer himself. He uses beta readers too, and kind of taught me what he knows. And then now Brennan's like I'm new to the term alpha reader. I guess that'd be like your first reader.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I got Brennan because the dude's smart as hell. He knows what he's talking about, and I've been lucky to get a few that I'm like they're my go-tos. So that'd be my 2 cents. Like, give it time. You don't have to rush through it. And just because they're great at one story and they have the best advice for that doesn't mean you have to use everything they say for the next one.
Exactly. I've been a beta reader as like for other people as well, and I try to tell them at the same like when they asked me to beta read that I can be brutal. It's just, because if I see potential, I just will point that out to them. Like, you can make this way better. And if there's something that I feel like hurts the story, I will point it out. I was beta reading Janine Pipe's. She was working on a novella. I don't know if she scrapped it or just put it on hold for now.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it, it came up from a short story that she published in Women in Horror Volume 2, like Graveyard Smash, which was a really good short story. But she kind of still was in that kind of narrowed mind, the tunnel vision, basically. She was just still focusing on that it was more like a short story. So I pointed it out to her, like, you need to expand more. It's always good to try to look it through the eyes of this character that you're working on. Try to envision, like, what is she thinking? What is he feeling? Because it was written in a first person point of view. And in my experience, it's always good to have, like, feel for the old senses, not just what she sees, but also, like, what is she touching? What is she smelling? What is she thinking? And she did say, like, she did appreciate all the feedback that I gave her, but she said, like, you're brutal as well, though. I'm like, I'm sorry, I know you have potential. If you work on it, it will be pretty good.
I personally love that, though. I like the more notes, the better, because I always send something off to beta readers knowing that it can be better. Never like, this is perfect, and I just need that affirmation. Chad Lutsky said something that always stuck with me, and I hope I'm not misquoting him too bad because he does occasionally listen. But he basically said that if you get a beta read back from somebody and it amounts to, this was good, I liked it, he never uses that beta again.
yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. If it doesn't have a suggestion or two, I'm like,
it's not a good fit. The last thing I wanted to say about this is, know who you want to use and stuff, but was my train of thought? Help me, Brennan. We never record in the morning. Now my brain's like, ah.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Sorry. That's okay. You should know what that means. That if you're getting God damn it, I'm cutting this out. I keep losing my fucking train of thought. I'm cutting this part out.
I was actually kind of honored that Chad Lutsky actually let me beta read one of his stories.
Did you get lots of feedback?
I did, yes. I actually did.
Perfect.
Yeah, I did. I put a lot of feedback, and he was like, "Whoa, thanks for that. I really appreciate it." And I'm like, "Oh, no problem. I hope I wasn't too brutal." Because I'm still in this kind of I'm still new in this kind of indie horror community, so I didn't even know that Chad Lutsky was that well known. So when I sent him this, I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna hate me. Oh my god.
No, he doesn't take. That's the thing that I wanted to bring up. The last point. He doesn't take, from my experience, things personal. He's lived. He's at the point of being a grandfather in his life. He's gone through a lot of ups and downs in general in life, I'm sure, and he seems like a pretty, like a patient guy that doesn't take notes for a story to heart, unless you're like, you suck.
I wasn't that bad.
Yeah, there's a huge difference, and it took me a little while, and I was like, I took it as an offense with my wife the most, that when she's the first story I ever sent her in physical format. It's a short story. She's like, she stopped after a page or two. She goes, "Oh, your tenses are mixed up." I was like, "Oh, this sucks." But I
I
don't.
get this. I get this so hard. I usually never let my husband read my stuff, and this one time, Samantha Kolesnik, she sent me back the short story that I have in her adventure horror anthology, Far From Home.
Plug that after.
Yes, and she sent me like this, like edits and what I could do to like make it a little bit better. And I'm like, okay. And I asked my husband to read it over, and I was so fucking nervous. I just stood like way in the back, like where the sofa is, and while he was reading, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, he's gonna fucking hate it. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what he's gonna say? And he just mentioned a couple of things, but at the same time, I was like, but it's good, right? Is it okay? He's like, yeah, it's fine. I almost fainted. I'm like, thank God.
We're all insecure. Every
Oh,
single,
yeah.
even the most confident person. We're all like we're vulnerable because we're putting out. At least most writers put what our heart and soul is into the story. You know, it's not everything, but it's part of us,
Yeah.
and that's what I was gonna say when I started out. And I know other people do this. They take things personal, constructive criticism as like some people go way off the rail, and we've seen it on Twitter.
Oh,
People in
yeah.
our community, people that we don't know.
Yeah.
Um, for anyone
It's,
that would take my 2 cents on this, don't do that. It's not personal.
yeah.
And take each lesson as a suggestion and an opinion. That's it.
True.
That's all I got to say about this subject.
I did take my, like, the feedback I got from my brothers when they read Nocturnal Blood. I did take it just a little smidge personally because, you know, they read it and they both said like, oh, it's really well written. Like, holy crap, it's really good. But then I was like, but, and they're like, we don't like Leia.
Oh no.
Like, she's so whiny. And I'm like, do you have anxiety? He's like, no. Yeah, then you shouldn't say anything.
I get
Uh,
it.
yeah, and at the same time, I kind of wanted to point out to them, you know, because they love horror films as much as I do, and we've kind of gotten this, like, really immersed into our brains that all female leads in horror films are supposed to be these badasses who can't hurt, who can't feel anything. They just have to be as badass as the male counterpart. So I was like, that's not who Leia is. Sorry about that, but yeah.
That's another reason why this is a vampire story that story in general that people should read. And you know what? That's so bullshit. I know we all know plenty of guys that are little whiny bitches or insecure. Like if you wear a pink shirt and you have a bunch of people that just say shit, like why? What's the point? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a color. It's on the it's like red except it's not red. It's pink. And why do you
Yeah.
feel a need to like that's you're harboring certain things that you're projecting to us and I think that there's a lot of men that are little bitches. They might physically be able to kick my ass, but I mean, why can't that be pointed out often in stories? And I'm sure they are. I mean, Vic LeMay, you're probably gonna be one person that does that, and I can't wait to read
Yeah.
that. Brendan, anything else on this subject, sir, before we move on?
On betas,
Yeah.
I'm just making sure I'm thinking of the right subject.
I don't know. I have a ADHD brain, so it's like, hey, talk about A, and then jump to
Yeah,
3, and then
the
here's
only
a fish.
the only thing I would add, and I've talked about this before, but I just think it's so important, is when you're new to writing, because I struggled with this, was learning how to take things with a grain of salt. You know, I have a very vivid memory of a story I sent out to 3 betas, and I got a lot of really good notes, and I tried to incorporate every one, sent it off for submission, got rejected, and went back and read it 6 months later. I said, no wonder, thank God they rejected this. It reads like Frankenstein's monster. It doesn't have a voice. It has four really portions of voice, and
Yeah.
it's You have to learn that, a lot of times betas might say, rephrase this because it's the way they would have phrased it. If you can kind of teach yourself the difference between this is awkward and nobody says it like this, and this is awkward and I wouldn't say it like this, that's a big step forward to be able to take.
Yeah, definitely. That's why when I'm doing beta reading, I always just say, like, maybe add this because, it might work like as his voice or as her voice, but, they have to figure out if it works or not.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Jones, actually, you know what? And I'm going to assume he got this from Chuck Palahniuk because, especially considering his book's called Consider This, often Tyler's feedback will be consider this approach. And Brennan does that too. And I like that. I mean, like, I'm an insecure little bitch, so like when you're coddling me with children gloves, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll consider that. I don't feel so bad about myself. But and this might be helpful to someone struggling with this, but one thing I'm focusing on right now that I'm struggling with in earlier drafts is not describing like a room or a scene or like a surrounding. Marcus Sell sent me feedback. He goes, "This is something that you're lacking right now. Like, just say a room." He goes, "It's just talking heads in a blank space." So that might be helpful to someone else to think about, like, hey, how am I describing rooms or an atmosphere? Uh, that's all. That's all I got now for this. So I would like to move on to upcoming projects. If you guys are, oh wait, no, there's one thing. Video of Kirsten in Icelandic that Villimey did. That was funny as hell. You were like at what? Can you tell us about that real quick? And I'll post that link if you're okay with that.
Wait, are you talking about the one that I posted like on my YouTube channel, or?
Yeah. You were at work and you're like, "This is how you say a certain word in Icelandic, a curse word."
Oh yeah,
I think it was
yeah.
YouTube. Maybe I'm mixing that up.
No, it wasn't YouTube. I posted it just on Twitter. You guys,
Okay.
I just posted like this idea on Twitter because it was there was nothing to do at work, and I'm bored. So hey guys, you want to hear me swear in Icelandic? And people were like, yes. So the thing with our swear words, I mean, we swear. Well, I can't say we. Maybe I just should say I swear a whole fucking lot.
I haven't heard one swear word yet.
Right. It just blends seamlessly into everything. Well, the thing is with our swear words, it has all this kind of connection to hell. So we would put anything that has to do with hell or with the devil, which is funny because we're not that overly religious, though. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. So if I'm gonna reenact what I did on Twitter, if I would say, for example, that I was that I stubbed my toe on a furniture, which happens actually quite a lot with me. I'm so fucking clumsy. I would just go, let out a stream of curse words, which would be something like this. Djöfisins helvítis anskotas fucking djöfull anskotin hafi það.
That sounds angry.
Well, yeah, because it usually sounds angry. But do you want me to do it in a happy voice?
No, you stubbed your toe. I wouldn't be happy.
No, right?
That's great.
But yeah, we tend to use like fucking a lot, but we've kind of like Icelanded it. If that's not the best word to translate it, but we don't say fuck like with a U. It kind of becomes like an O and then 2K, so fuck.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So alltaf bara, there, this slips out the Icelandic. So we usually just go, oh, djöfisins fucking helviti. Helvitis fucking fuck. That's actually that came on our annual end of year comedy show. So we always have this kind of end of year comedy show in Iceland that we kind of make fun of everything that happened during that year. And it was during the time when the Panama documents leaked out. And we noticed that there were a lot of our politicians that were involved in the Panama documents. They still haven't been brought to justice.
Oh.
Yep. kind of gives you an insight into the Icelandic political system here. But people were angry at that time, and we protested and everything. And in this comedy like hour, they did a bit on that, and there was just this one guy who was just sitting in his in his dining room, and he just wanted to make like a protester like sign, and he didn't know what to put there. He was like, I'm so angry, but everything this year has been so fucked up, and I don't know what to write, so what should I write? And in the end, he just decided to write helvitis fucking fuck. So it was just a goddamn fucking fuck.
Is America on a lot of those clips? Because I mean, like, you got so much material.
No, not really.
That's probably for the best.
The world doesn't revolve around us, Pat.
Look, I gotta get my butt out to that side of the world. I've never been over to like Europe or whatever.
No, but if you watched the Eurovision with Will Ferrell, he kind of gave accurate-ish vision of how we Icelanders like to look at foreigners, like just the tourists in general, especially the American ones, and it was hilarious.
How do you guys, or some of you?
He kind of portrayed it that we hated you, like, you're so annoying, like everything that you do is like you're stepping out of the fucking world for the first time, and you're so annoying. And it was so funny because I worked in the tourist industry, and I'm like, I wasn't like that. I actually enjoyed talking to you guys, so I don't know.
That's hilarious. Let's talk about upcoming projects. What do you have that's upcoming that you would like to talk about, if any?
So I am. You might be a little bit sad to hear that, but I'm not going to be working on the Nocturnal book 4. I'm going to let that a little bit brew a little bit more further in my head, because I have 3 books to write, and I just really need to get my shit together and see what I'm going to have to do with that. But I'm just now decided to work on there's so many submission calls, so I'm like, I want to put my short stories out there, because I've actually developed this really huge ass crush on short stories. So I'm hopefully gonna, focus on that for the summer. And if I get any rejections, I'll just use them to work on my, I'm probably gonna do like a short story collection. And my friend and I at Damascus, we're actually gonna work on a Western horror story.
Ooh.
Nice.
What can you tell us about that?
My idea was that it's gonna be about Wendigos. And
nice.
Yes, they're actually one of my favorite mythical beings.
They're so creepy.
I know. It's going to be so much fun.
The ritual portrayed it so well.
It did, yeah. So I'm going to bank on that, and it's going to be about people trapped on a train when Wendigos attack. They're stranded near a field of tall grass, and that's where people go missing one by one.
Oh.
And it's up to a female bounty hunter and her captive to try to fix things and try to, prevent from everyone dying.
That's awesome. Yeah, sign us up for that. Just want to remind everybody, if you want to get some Dead Headspace merchandise, go to deadheadspace.com. Click on the store tab, and you can find my mug on a mask. And I think, what was it, the episode with Cat Scully said, have my face on your face. Something like that. No,
I do like that.
That's not going to sell anything. I need a new thing to say. Well, where can people follow you, Villimey?
I'm most active on Twitter. I mean, if you haven't heard from what I've been saying this entire podcast, I'm so active on Twitter that you cannot even bother me at work when I'm supposed to be working. My hand is glued to the phone, as my boss used to tell me. But she's fine. She says it's okay, so as long as I handle the customers first.
That's great. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
My Twitter handle is Villimey, and then there's a capital S. because my last name is unpronounceable for you guys. So I'm gonna save you guys the torture of doing that.
Can you pronounce it? Because I don't know how to do it.
Okay, so my full name, because I have a long name, is Villimey Mist Sigurbjörnsdóttir.
Okay, that's...
You try now, Pat.
Nope. Let's move on to what are you reading? What are you currently reading?
So I'm actually, because I'm going into research mode, I'm actually reading T.C. Parker's latest book,
Ooh.
Salvation Springs.
Nice.
So I need every kind of research about Westerns because, there's not a lot of Western here in Iceland, you guys. So
it is a beautiful country, though.
It is, but not the Western type thing.
Nope.
I need the scorching type of sun. We don't barely get that here.
Brennan, what are you reading, bud?
So I don't remember if we've talked about this on an episode before, but we are starting a new feature in June because we have this terrible problem where we have so many people we want to talk to, so many people we want to, help them get their word about their upcoming books out there. We just don't have enough time to schedule everybody. So we're going to be doing readings and mini interviews with certain authors that, we can't get in for a full episode. And the very first one is going to be with Sina Palayo. So I just jumped into Children of Chicago last night. And I'm like 3 chapters deep. I'm digging every word. Her voice is just...
It's so good.
I have that book on audio, so I can't wait to listen to it.
I just got the audio too. I stopped after so long when I saw that the audio was out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna read that. Do you see why I compare it to Thomas Harris?
Yeah, it's been a while since I read the Hannibal books. It's been at least 10 years, so I don't remember, exactly prose styles and stuff like that, but I've got enough of it, to see why you would make that comparison. Now, Pat, is there anything you want to add about Spotlight since we're kind of unofficially announcing that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Good call, man, because I totally didn't even think of that. So me and Brennan are gonna figure it out. Like we're gonna it's gonna be mini episodes. We're gonna have the audio and video version. Audio versions are found where you find podcasts, so wherever you listen to full episodes, that's where they'll be. And it's just gonna go into bonus material. They're not like an episode. So far we're planning it for, I said 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe they'll last 30. I don't know, but I can't imagine we want to go any longer than that.
That would be an episode.
That would be an episode.
That would no longer be mini.
Readings don't fit this style for the full-length episodes, but we kind of wanted to... We want our platform to be a place where you can find pretty much everything. We're trying to document this era of horror, dark fiction, and crime, and the way that we're doing that is exploring what works and what doesn't, and we think this would be a good way to give readers a glimpse into an author, know the basics of them, have the links to whereabouts to find them, and hear just a short piece of a latest fiction or a book that they really like that they wrote. We'll have Sina Palayo first. After that will be S.H. I don't know if she's going by her full name, Samara Hunt, but I think it'd be S.A. Hunt. Let's see, real quick. And then after, she's third. Mark Gunnels is second. So we got Sina, Mark Gunnels, and then S.A. Hunt. Talked with Gabino, and I'm not talking to anyone else right now, so I don't get carried away. But that's the 3.
But that's not like you.
That's the 3 that we got planned, with probably Gabino being the 4th one. And we don't have a schedule for them. We're just going to do them whenever me and Brennan think that's a good time to jump in and have another spotlight. What are you also currently reading? Because I know you read a few books at once, Brennan.
Yeah, I do. I'm still working through... Oh, gosh, which one did I talk about on Friday? Queen of the Cicadas by V. Castro. I've got Coco by Peter Straub going. But this is the one I'm diving into most recently. So
ones that I'm gonna probably start in a week is Sam Richards, Weird Punk Books. It's a press that has a lot of exciting books coming out. So I got three that I'm gonna prepare for, which is Sam Richards' own book, To Wallow in Ash and Other Sorrows, that won the, I believe it's called the Wonderland Award. Then we got Joe Koch, The Wingspan of Severed Hands. It's a pretty, I mean, I love that cover. It's so fucking cool. And then the last one is three different writers, Sam Richard, Katie Michelle Quinn, and Joe Cornell. It's a tiny, super tiny book. It's called Laser Mall, and this is literally a almost pocket-sized book. And then I don't know, I might be jinxing myself, but I might be able to read Eric Roca's latest book.
It's so good.
I saw you had gotten an early copy of it.
I
I was
did.
really, I was excited to get one of those the signed copies that Sam put up for sale. I think that's going to be a big one this year. Everybody who's read it seems to absolutely love it.
I read it in one sitting, and at the time we usually just go like at a set time to bed, and I was just like, shh, no, let me finish this. I need to know what happens. So I
That
just
is
read it in one sitting, and I couldn't get enough.
that's called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I love the title. The cover though, oh my god. Eric sent us the digital, but I'm like, I gotta have my hands on the physical. That thing looks phenomenal. It looks like something Clive Barker would have on one of his books.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Um, you know what? Let's jump to one of the last things. Final thoughts. Is Vic LeMay. Is there anything that you want to talk about we haven't covered? Anything you want to say?
Just that I had my website redesigned, so you can just go and jump onto my website. It's villemeymisauthor.com, and there you'll be able to find all kinds of interesting things. You can have links to my books. It also has a pretty cool trailer of the first book. And then you can also, because I have a YouTube channel, it's called Fanged Pipsqueak Reads. So it's review the YouTube channel. So I'm reviewing like small, like indie authors and small presses and independent presses regarding to horror in most of the cases. And I had put in the website that you can suggest a book to me.
Oh, that's different. That's cool.
Yeah. So if you have if you have a book that you really, really like, you can definitely suggest that, and I will look into getting it and trying to
Very cool.
review it.
Awesome. Brendan, anything that you want to cover before we say goodnight? Goodbye, whatever.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
It doesn't
I want
matter.
to thank you today for giving us almost 2 hours of her time. I loved the Nocturnal series. Whenever you get around to writing book 4, I'm anxiously awaiting it. I think what you did with the with Banquet and sending all of the proceeds to Steelmote. How close did I get?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, pretty good. I'll take that. I think that's a really, really cool and very necessary thing to do, and I don't have to tell you that. And congratulations on having your story come out in Far From Home. That was one of those anthologies that everybody and their mom was subbing to. So you earned that spot.
Yeah,
let's plug that real quick. Plug it away, Vic LeMay.
Yeah, so I have actually, I didn't believe it at first, but yeah, I managed to get a spot in the really anticipated anthology from Sam Kolesnik's Off Limits Press. It's called Far From Home, and it's an anthology of adventure horror. And if you guys are, kind of wishing that I was reading, writing more about Iceland, you're in luck because this story happens in Iceland. And it focuses on one Icelandic mythological being.
Very cool. I should check that out. Sam's been prolific as hell this year. I mean, what hasn't she done? What has she not done? My final thoughts are: I echo Brennan. Thank you for your time, Vic LeMay. I appreciate it. It's been a blast, and we definitely want to read whatever you come out with next, especially book 4. We highly recommend Nocturnal series. It's great. Brennan, as always, thank you, sir. Listeners, thank you for joining us again. If you are wondering who we have next, it is happening in 3 days for episode 94. We'll be talking to Tim Meyer, surely covering his summer, Malignant Summer. Almost butchered that title again.
Again.
And we'll probably be talking about his love for IPAs and being a Jersey boy. Who knows? We haven't recorded it yet, so we'll have fun talking about that with him. Thank you for listening to us. You have many choices in podcasts. We thank you for picking us.